You're listening to the Microsoft Innovation Podcast, where we explore the intersection of people, business, and technology. This year, we're adding a new show to our lineup, The AI Advantage, to help you learn the skills you need to thrive in the AI era.
Welcome to the Co-Pilot Show, where I interview Microsoft staff innovating with AI. I hope you will find this podcast educational and inspire you to do more with this great technology. Now, let's get on with the show. My guest today is Wim, someone I've had the privilege of knowing since 2012. He was already a Microsoft MVP and I was just starting my journey. Wim is a remarkable individual, a gentle yet strong soul with incredible technical expertise paired with a kind and humble spirit. He's a master storyteller, using software as his canvas to craft compelling narratives. With years of experience, Wim has been the creative force behind some of the most memorable onstage demos at Microsoft technology events. I'm excited to dive into this journey and insights today. You can find links to his bio and socials in the show notes for this episode. Welcome to the show, Wim.
Wow, Mark, thank you.
Good to have you on, mate.
I'm not sure how I'm going to live up to all those expectations from that intro, but thank you so much. I'm happy to be here.
It's so good to have you on the show. And as I said, I've known you for quite a long time. And I've seen your journey both as an MVP and then, of course, inside Microsoft, where you have had a massive impact over the years, both behind the scenes and, of course, on stage, doing some amazing big event demos in the business application space with Microsoft. Before we get into your journey, your tech career, and what you're up to nowadays and what's top of mind for you going into 2025, tell me a bit about food, family, and fun.
Let me start with family. It's basically my wife, my son, and myself here, all based in the area of Seattle, Washington. As you can probably hear from the accent, I'm originally actually from Belgium. So all the rest of our family is still back there. And I guess we kind of abandoned them in a way to have this role here at Microsoft at headquarters. So that's the family part, I would guess. Like what I like to do with my family is like we like to cycle a lot. Like there's lots of mountain bike parks here in the area. So we really enjoy that. And since about a year and a half ago, I really got into like Zwift as well. So this indoor cycling is like e-gaming or e-sports as they call it. And so I've actually lost a lot of weight just cycling indoor. It's safe, it's warm, it's cozy compared to, of course, the Seattle weather, which is like 10 months, 12 months. Really bad. So that's the fun part. Lots of cycling, lots of like mountain biking, getting outdoors. We have a dog as well, so that's outdoors as well. And then the food part, like being Belgium, I think the safest choice, of course, is going to be chocolate.
Absolutely. And what about beer? Belgian beer is pretty famous.
Beer, yeah, it is. But I'm not really a beer drinker, so I'll stick to chocolate.
Chocolate.
Like chocolate works all the time, any time of the day, any occasion. Chocolate is a good go-to for anyone.
So true. How often do you get back to Belgium?
I think as a family, like we would try to go every 2 years, but I end up more often there because of like sometimes events or being in the neighborhood because of like work reasons. I'll try to kind of squeeze in a visit to my family back in Belgium as well.
Are you going back in 2025?
That's giving away the surprises for the family, I guess.
Oh, of course, yes.
No, I'm kidding.
Here's the thing. I could twist your arm, see, is that I'm going from New Zealand up to Slovenia for a conference called Dynamics Minds.
Absolutely.
And I went last year and they invited me the first year. This will be the third year it's running. And I tell you what, it is the best conference experience you will ever experience in your life.
Like so many questions as a result of that.
I've been to a lot of conferences, right? The difference with this conference is that it's in Slovenia. Most people can't say that they've been to Slovenia. And it's kind of like your hardcore tech sessions all through the day, but the night turns into like a carnival atmosphere. And they go hard out. It's right on the Adriatic Sea, beautiful sunsets, you know, the sailboats out in the harbor. They put up this massive stage. They bring in DJs, food, just amazing, amazing food and musical and theatrics and everything experience. And
is it like a great vacation with there happens to be some technical content.
It's hardcore Microsoft, right? The whole
Yeah.
thing is all around,
Yeah.
Dynamics Minds as a play on
That's
Dynamics, right? 365. The originators were more, as in the company that puts it on is an ISV in the truest sense of the word, but there's a full Power Platform track, there's a full Dynamics CE, F&O, and which have also covers, Navision history and VC, of course, now. And then there's a business track and there's a partner track. It's a really robust, conference. I should see if I can get you on the invite list.
Yeah. How important do you think is the location there? Like, can you replicate this somewhere else? Or
No.
do you feel like
location's critical? This ISV has done one of the smartest things that all ISVs over the world should take a leaf out of their playbook. Rather than going and having a booth at any number of conferences, right, where you're just one in a crowded booth hall of many people, they did something quite unique in that they were like, hang on, how can we flip this on this head? Could we bring all our customers to us by putting on a high value event that people would want to attend, which we will host? And the beauty is, the cost of things in Slovenia is, I think, more economical than other, but like if you try to run the same event in London or Paris or something like that, it would be exy. It would be quite a pricey event. So they've probably got an advantage on accommodation, transportation. You got planes, trains, automobiles, ship. You can take any of those scenarios to get there. They all work. I took them all last time apart from ship. Did I go on a boat? Yeah, it's the only one I did. I did because I was in Venice before the event. And of course, the only way around Venice, right, is on the canal boat. So I did do actually all modes of transport last year. Anyhow, highly recommend. I'm actually going to talk to the organizers and see if we can get you a spot, maybe the keynote address or something like that.
I think there's probably much better speakers for a keynote there than I am. But
you would love this event.
But I appreciate it.
And you can go to Belgium, on your way home type thing, or you can do your stopover through there. Yeah. Anyhow, I digress.
Yes.
Tell me, I gave a bit in the intro of your tech, career as a Microsoft MVP and then going Blue Badge and working for Microsoft. But take us just a little bit before that. How did you become an MVP? What were you doing at the time? And then why did you choose to go into Microsoft? And then a bit of your Microsoft journey. That would be awesome.
Sure. I started my career as a developer, building web applications in a marketing agency. And the main thing I learned there was that I love to combine like technology and business, like making that bridge between like these business problems and then solving it with technology. The technology we used at that time was ASP, VB script, super basic. And it became a little like after a few years, first job, like I was like ready for the next challenge. And I accepted a role as a trainer for .NET development. So I taught other people how to build Windows applications, web applications with .NET. And the colleagues there, they were really amazing. There was a company called U2U. They're based in Belgium. They did trainings across the world. And we had multiple MVPs for SharePoint and for other technologies within that company. So they were great examples for me on what they did. During the day, they were teaching like classes, but then they used that knowledge as well to like educate the community and connect to the community and learn them about all the great new technology that Max was bringing up. And so I think that kind of inspired me to go do the same. And it took a while to kind of find kind of where I wanted to do that. But like I landed in like, as you know, as an MVP in the Dynamics in the business apps world. Again, going back to what I learned in my first job, really loving that combination of technology and business. And I was looking in how to translate that. I thought like there's no better place than to do that than with business applications, because that's what they're designed to do. And so that's how I landed in Dynamics CRM back that day, like CRM 3.0. And then we went to 4.0. And that's when I started really kind of engaging in the business app space. And I started doing like sessions like for the local community in Belgium and like starting to get engaged in the community there. And that's how I became an MVP, really, is like out of this passion of I'm using technology day in, day out, and then leveraging that to share it with the world. I never thought of it that way. I never started with, I want to become an MVP. It's just something that I love doing. I love talking about all the stuff I learned and all the things you could do with it. And so that's kind of how I rolled into, and now I'm doing this session for Microsoft, and now I'm going to speak at an event, and now I'm going to do this, and I'm writing a blog post or whatsoever. And so I almost rolled into it without truly realizing it, but it was all driven by this passion for making that bridge from technology to the business. And that's kind of how I ended up becoming an MVP in that context of being a trainer. As a next step, because we could talk probably the entire podcast about all the steps in my career, but I think that the common thread is really that combination of technology and business. Because like what I learned doing those, like as a .NET trainer, I started training like Dynamics CRM courses as well. What I learned there was that I love to do introductions. Like I noticed in the course, like, oh, we're going to talk about all these amazing things, and this is what you can do with it, and that's the value. And then, okay, now we have to go do it. Oh no, like this is so boring, like all the little steps to actually make it happen. And then the next chapter, oh, this is going to be amazing because there's all these amazing things and you can do these different types of like applications with it. And it's going to be so cool. And then, okay, now we have to look at the details to get do it. And so I really learned from myself that I love to do introductions and kind of
Nice.
evangelize technology. And that brought me into pre-sales. Like when I was looking at my next challenge, like, oh, well, maybe pre-sales is my thing, because it's exactly this type of thing where I will look at a business problem that a customer has, and then I'll look at technology and see how this technology can fit to solve that problem. And that's how I landed in pre-sales. I was an MVP there. Like I continued to be like an MVP for Dynamics CRM at that time. But my biggest plus or my biggest value at that time was that because of being a .NET trainer, I had a very broad kind of exposure to Microsoft technology. I had a lot of colleagues who did SharePoint, lots of colleagues who did pure .NET development. And so my value really that I thought of as a pre-sales was like, some people like, if you have a hammer, everything is a nail, right? And my value was like, that was not my situation. Because yes, I loved and I was super passionate about Dynamics, but I knew that some cases like maybe SharePoint was better, or in some cases maybe custom development was better. And so that was awesome in my time as a pre-sales consultant, was really that I could look at a problem and translate or build a solution that was really fitting to what the problem was. And maybe that meant Dynamics with SharePoint, or maybe that meant something else. So that's kind of what I enjoyed doing for a while. And that's really also the point where I got exposed a lot to Microsoft and how I ended up with Microsoft as a technology strategist. I was for partners, so it was a partner technology strategist. Basically doing the same. How do I help partners do pre-sales? How do I help partners kind of like scale, and how do I like make sure that they learn all the new capabilities and possibilities? And so interestingly enough, like all these steps in my career is always a build-up. Like if you would look at my LinkedIn, it's like some people I'm sure would think like, this is so random, from a developer to a trainer to pre-sales to then a partner technology strategist to then a product marketing manager in Office 365 for data center expansion. How did that happen? What's the connection there? And for me, there's a super clear connection, but like someone looking at it without any context, I'm sure it's a bit more challenging. And the link there is really pretty simple. Like when I was a PTS, when I was a partner technology strategist, like you always look at the big events and you see Microsoft, and during the keynotes, there's someone doing a demo. And that someone was typically a product marketing manager or a technical product marketer. And I was like, that's awesome. That's the job I want to do, because it's close on technology and it takes new technology and translate it into the value for all those customers listening. This is like the next level of pre-sales. That's what I want to do. And so I simply looked at the title of these people and I started looking at Microsoft career site, like, are there any jobs that are this specific role? Because I want to go do this. I want to be that person doing the demo. And so that was for me the next level of pre-sales, was becoming a product marketer and doing those demos. But within the business app space, like that role never opened. And to me, that makes sense because it was, of course, the best job in the world. So no one would want to leave that, right? And so I had a mentor at that time that said, like, maybe you should like open up your eyes a little bit more and look beyond just Dynamics. And that's how I ended up in Office 365 as a technical product marketer there. And it was fun. I learned a lot. Like, it was a crazy move because that's the move that made me go from Belgium to the US. It moved me from Dynamics into the Office 365 space. It's a place where I had no network at all. Like, the network I had was all MVPs in business apps, was all the Microsoft Teams in business apps. So it was a crazy move. New country, new job, like new technology. But I learned a lot and it was great. I would do it again. But I learned after a year, like, okay, this isn't perfect because I was missing my connection to the business. Because I was talking about data center expansion, it was mostly about, is my data going to be stored in my country or in my region because I care about that for compliance or whatever reasons. And so it was a checkbox. And like, while I learned a lot about messaging this type of stuff, like, it was like, yeah, I can be passionate about it. And that's when I came back to business apps, really, because I realized, like, my next job and any next job after that, I need to make sure that it's always around something which I can be passionate about. And that's going back to the common thread, technology and business somehow combined. So I landed in the Power Platform space. Like, Power Apps was brand new at that time. Power Automate was new. They were still called different at that time, like Flow.
Yes.
And those type of things. And I started building demos for like Power Platform. And I like looking back at that period, and I never looked at it that way. But Ryan Cunningham once introduced me to like another part of the team. And he said, hey, everyone, this is Wim. Wim has been representing the Power Platform for 2 years straight on every single platform in the, like, any single stage in the world. And I was like, well, like, that sounds exaggerated. And then I started thinking about it. I was like, well, maybe it is true in some way, right? Like, yes, like at that time I was traveling the world with James Phillips, doing his keynotes, doing the demos there, either being on stage myself, either being backstage supporting someone else to do the demo, or someone was doing the demo that I built for the keynote purposes. So in a way, like, Ryan, as usual, was right. And like, even though it sounded like an exaggeration, it was in a way true. So it was interesting to hear someone else talk about it that way and like get this perspective that I didn't have before, that actually, I've been building a lot of demos that have been used, especially on those early days, every single stage across the world. And that's kind of a fun memory to think back of. And a lot of good kind of experiences came out of that period as well, doing demos and doing keynotes at that level.
Dynamics Minds is one event you don't want to miss. Microsoft product managers and industry leaders from all over the world converge in Slovenia to explore the latest in Dynamics 365, the Power Platform, and Copilot. Expect 3 days of in-person community connection, trailblazing insights, and a location sure to inspire our creativity. Early bird tickets are on sale now, and podcast listeners get 10% off by registering via the link in the show notes. Hope to see you there.
In your mind, what was the biggest catalyst between Dynamics CRM or Dynamics 365 CRM that we had back then? And I mean, because at the end of the day, it was low code, right? We could easily produce other apps without being customer relationship management. But you would have seen the different leaders, as I saw, right, go through pre-James Phillips. And I feel like we were on a steady curve. I remember being in the Advanta campus, and the kind of inside joke was BizApps paid for the Microsoft end of the year barbecue, right? In other words, the revenues it produced was like, it might cover a group lunch, kind of joking. And then we saw Dynamics 365 come into play, the unification of a lot of the applications from a go-to-market perspective, and we saw the kind of between 2016 and 2019, the coming together of the Power Platform really got its name Power Platform in 2019, but in 2016 we saw, it was Power Apps and Flow, etc. back then. What was the biggest catalyst going on behind the scenes that created almost this hockey stick effect of then growth and adoption around the world? In your mind, looking from the inside, what do you think were the big catalysts, that transformational piece inside Microsoft and its go-to-market?
I'm not sure if I have a good view on that. I'm not sure if it's something that is actually a decision that's made at Microsoft, right?
No.
product market fit that kind of happened at some point with like
very important.
This technology now works for a large amount of people. My expertise, if I may say so, like back when I was working Dynamics CRM, was not sales, marketing, or service. Like I was super gung-ho on like, this is XRM. You can build any relationship management with this thing. And that was I was a strong believer in XRM back in the day. And it was always a fight to convince others about hey, you're not buying a sales tool, you're buying a platform. Like that was my message all the time. And so, but it didn't pick up at that time. And I think a lot of it was, because the world wasn't ready for it that back then, because everything needed to be bespoke or needed to be built or was better if it was like perfect fit or whatsoever. And I think it's just kind of like, the world almost got ready for it because of there's multiple factors there, right? Like there's, it's really hard to get the right people to build things. Building things takes a long time. It's like that entire same story that we had back then around the XRM, like the buy versus build, and kind of how this is the perfect thing in between. Like, yes, you can buy a bus to go from A to B, but it's not going to get you exactly from A to exactly to B. Or you can buy a car, which I compare to building. Like, yes, you buy the super expensive car. You can do everything you want with it. You can drive exactly A, exactly B. Or you can do XRM, buy some platform, which is like a taxi, and you pay for like exactly where you get picked up and where you get dropped off. So that's kind of how I used to compare it. And I think like because of kind of all the challenges and kind of the world kind of thinking at that time and kind of the need around like resources and like things need to go faster. I think that helped kind of accelerate a lot of those things. And Power Apps became the low-code platform. Like part of that is like just how things evolved and how it came together. Right? In these early days with like Project Sienna, like I considered it like a nice tool, right? It was a pre-sales tool. Like, hey, you're gonna do a CRM like pre-sales or like a demo for a customer. Great. Why don't you start with Project Sienna? Because if you show like a customized mobile app that does exactly the specific task that you wanted to do that the customer wants, the customer's like, this is amazing. This is exactly what I need. I want it. And like, yeah, but if you want this, you first have to, of course, build the platform and buy CRM. Do all these extra things on top of it. But like it's similar to how Power BI was eye-candy in the beginning, also in pre-sales. Like, let's show the numbers, what it could be and what the outcome could be. And then like, okay, how do I get there? Well, you need to do like your opportunities and your leads and qualify things and whatever it is, whether it's like in a sales scenario or sales marketing service, or whether it's in an XRM, like any relationship type of scenario. Sorry, not direct answer to your question.
No,
I
that's
guess,
good. That's good. And I learned a good thing there, because I had never, when I always did the build versus buy, I never used that analogy that you used of bus, taxi, and car. And I find, because I've been that pre-sales role myself most of my career, is that your ability to translate into real world scenarios for business people is so, so, so important than, just talking about tech. And I love that, because what I've noticed in the co-pilot world of the last 6 months and to a year that I've been involved in it, is that this build versus buy is coming into play again, which I hadn't seen since 2012, 2013, right? Where now they're going Copilot M365 is your buy. Extend is another little play in there, which is Copilot Studio. And then, of course, your build is Foundry. And it's interesting, that little nuance of play and ways of thinking about it. We can upcycle and use it again with the
Go
totally
find those
different
slide
audience.
decks again, yes.
Yeah, I've still got them in some old archives,
I'm sure I have some external disk somewhere
on
that has them,
OneDrive.
yes.
I try to get everything onto OneDrive once it came out. And I often, I've got like 15 odd years, I think now, of stuff back in there. And every now and again I see something come up in a presentation. I'm like, I've got a good way of diagramming this, because it's in this old slide and we can just modernize the graphic and reuse it. Tell me about, what's your role now?
Before I answered, I was thinking when you said like that, one of the changes that I witnessed more closely to home was, and you said something around like how important it was to translate it into real kind of cases for customers. I think that was a change that we did, for example, with demos as well, where every time we build a demo, like the requirement was like start from a customer and not like Contoso or Northwind Traders or whatever. Start from an actual customer.
Yes.
And then like
Real.
take that and like, yes, sometimes you need to up level that, or sometimes you need to add like a new feature to that because no one has seen it yet. But like start from an actual business case. And that's something we still do in my role today, is like, we start from a real case, from a real customer.
So good.
And then we kind of go from there. And that's maybe a tie into like your question, like what do I do now? Right now, I'm the community lead for business apps. So everything which is Dynamics 365 and Power Platform. And that sounds super ambiguous, probably. But what that means is like in my team, I have a set of evangelists or really product experts who build demos for keynotes. The release wave videos that you see, they're built on my team together with the studio. Like business application launch event, all the demos that are in kind of the presentation there, like are all built by those evangelists. So we have a set of experts, product experts who build demonstrations for keynote level events, let's say, whether that's a video online or whether that's an in-person event. That's one set. And then we have community engagement. So everything which is community sites. The forums, like for Dynamics and for Power Platform, are managed in my team as well. So that's, again, a set of managing kind of the sites and kind of the engagement we do on that, making sure the monitoring and moderation around the forums and so forth. Then you have advocacy programs. The MVP program is one of the programs we run in there. Of course, MVP is a broad Microsoft program, but we fit into that as kind of the business apps MVPs and kind of support for that. But also other programs like super users, who are our most active users on the forums, or user group leaders like you and others who kind of have their own local kind of user groups and kind of want to distribute, be an evangelist as well for Microsoft. And then events, everything around kind of community events is supported by my team as well. So that's already like 4 buckets. If we were going through it, you have like evangelism, like which is really content creation. You have the community forums, the site there, kind of how do we engage with the community on like an online kind of presence. And what comes with that as well is like LinkedIn and YouTube and all our social media channels for community. Then you have the events, like how do we take all that content that we created and bring it to the people through community events and support content and send speakers, for example, for Dynamics Minds or any of the other events like Power Platform Community is really big for us. And then all the advocacy programs, which are somehow related to the community as well, the MVPs, the user groups, the super users, and so forth. So that's kind of the scope as a community lead. All that stuff kind of fits into the things that my team does here.
So if you look at your schedule for the year and the big events that are on, which ones are you directly involved in? Because like I see more biz apps content in Build these days, Ignite, of course. And then you've got the big community conference like the Power Platform Conference in Vegas. Are there any others that you have your finger in, so to speak?
Yeah, like we get involved in first-party events. Like we don't run them on my team.
Yes.
It's a marketing team organizes those. And we typically get involved like, oh, we need kind of a keynote type of stuff. So we're kind of fairly hands-off for those. It's mostly the community events. So the big ones for us, like our platform community conference is our biggest one. If you would think about the Dynamics example, you would have like the UG one, what is it called? Dynamics Con.
Yep. Anything in Europe?
Like European Power Platform Conference.
Oh, that's you're involved in that as well?
Yes, we were last year. And like every year is kind of a new decision.
Yeah.
But yes, like that's our bigger one in Europe for Power Platform. And I'm involved, for example, in the BizApp Summit, which is happening in Germany. So there's like, we get involved in different kind of levels. And actually, one of the things we're working on right now is have this more like an event tiering strategy, because there's so many community events and we have limited scale on the teams. Like, how do we decide which event you go support?
Exactly.
And like, it's not that one is better than the other or worse than the other. It's like, okay, what is kind of an objective way to make a decision? Like, this is one that we as a community are going to get involved in more than another, and why? And so that's something that we're actively, for example, working through. Like, what is that framework that we can use so that anytime someone comes ask us, hey, Microsoft, can you support my community event? We can go to the framework and say, oh, like looking at this, you're a tier 3 community event. This is how we can support you.
Yeah.
Or you're something else, like maybe you should reach out to the local Microsoft office. Or like, it's never a decision about is this a good or a bad event.
Yeah.
Like it's typically, if we could, we would support everyone,
Yes,
but we don't
of
have that
course.
scale. We don't have those resources. So we need a way, and we try to make that like as objective as possible. For the really big ones, it's kind of obvious because you can look at some of their sizes and the outcomes they run and then kind of support them from there. But like we get a lot of requests, and so it's always a challenge to kind of, it's never fun to say no.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, we have to say no a lot because there's a lot of events, which is great.
Well, with that, Wim, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Mark. This was awesome. Thank you for having me.
Hey, thanks for listening. I'm your host, Mark Smith, otherwise known as the NZ365 guy. Is there a guest you would like to see on the show from Microsoft? Please message me on LinkedIn and I'll see what I can do. Final question for you. How will you create with Copilot today? Ka kite.
Are you ready to accelerate your career in the Microsoft ecosystem? The 90-Day Mentoring Challenge, created by Mark Smith, is your opportunity to create a personalized pathway to success. Join over 1,200 alumni from more than 70 countries who have achieved remarkable results, from promotions to new job opportunities. Take it from Nathan, who said, "Since completing the 90-Day Mentoring Challenge, I've become an MVP in business applications and doubled my income." Or from Parves, who shares, "I've never felt as inspired or energized about my career as I do now." Sign up at arcor.nz365guy.com. You can find the link in the show notes. And if you use the code podcast, you'll get 10% off.